Hello and welcome to the Herald-Tribune SNN Conversations with the Candidates. I'm Tom Tryon, opinion editor of the Herald-Tribune. And with me are Alan Mayo and Lourdes Ramirez, candidates for Sarasota County Commission District 4. Now they're running in the Republican primary, and the winner will face other candidates in the general election. Absentee ballots will go out in the primary on July 22, and the primary will conclude on August 26. Candidates for this four-year office must live in their district, but voting is countywide. Please note the Herald-Tribune and SNN will provide more coverage of this race as the election draws near, and more information will be available in an online voter guide at heraldtribune.com. Let's just go right to the questions here. Alan, Lourdes, both of you have been engaged in local politics in the community, but you haven't held elected office, I believe. So what have you done? What would you like to single out as something that qualifies you to be on the county commission? And we'll start with you, Lourdes.
Well, I've been very much involved in community-wide issues. I've been president of several civic organizations and been involved in land use issues, tax concerns, and working with the community. And I felt with that experience, I can really do well as a county commissioner because I listen to the citizens of Sarasota County.
Okay, good, thank you. Alan?
Well, I've been here 30 years, and for 20 years, I sat on different county and regional boards and advisory boards, planning commissions, regional planning councils. I also have about 20 years in with nonprofits and volunteer organizations, and I've been on the board of the Comas Area Civic Association, which is an umbrella group for 40 homeowner associations.
Okay, thanks. So you're both running in the GOP primary. What Republican principles would guide your decision-making on the county commission? So, Alan, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'm an accountant by degree, a certified planner by profession, conservative, fiscally conservative, property rights, and very, very concerned about the budget.
Okay, thanks. Lourdes?
My two main concerns would be, and it's very much in line with the Republican principles, are fiscal responsibility, less taxes, and low budgets, as well as the fact that the small government. I believe we need to be core stuff for the community, not having too much extravagance.
Sure. We'll divert a little bit from the script. As you mentioned, Sarasota is heavily dominated by Republicans, and yet there is a sense that there's a high demand for land use planning, land use regulation. We could debate whether there's a lot of it, too much, but tell us a little bit about how you approach land use planning and regulation, and how you would deal with that as a commissioner. We'll start with Lourdes.
It's important to plan well for our communities. We have a high quality of life, and it's important for us to have an opportunity to grow without overburdening the Sarasota County taxpayer or our roads. We need to make sure we plan smartly.
Okay, Alan?
Well, first of all, I'm a planner, and a lot of my career has been good planning, smart growth. ULI for a long time had what they called refill, redevelopment and infill. With good planning comes the proper roads, comes everything that's necessary to keep this beautiful and not to ignore the fact that people are going to move here.
Okay. So on the land use planning, Sarasota 2050 is one of the county's long-range plans. Rather than dissect the whole plan, let's talk about what would be the most important thing you would want to change or maintain about 2050? Change or maintain? And we'll start with Alan.
Okay, it's a voluntary overlay. It has settlements, it has villages, and it has hamlets. Fiscal neutrality has to stay in. Also, the compact development has to stay in because you cannot take the available lands in the eastern part of the county and dice them up into 5 and 10 acre ranchettes. We would never be able to afford to deliver the services to those.
Okay, Lourdes?
The number one issue is fiscal neutrality. We have to make sure that the development pays for the infrastructure it needs, and the costs are not turned over to the Sarasota County taxpayers. I believe it should be all with the development.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about whether you would support, in concept at least, a come-as-you-are shelter for chronically homeless adults. So give me a yes or no on do you support it in concept, and then let's talk a little bit about what has bogged the process down so far is location and siting. So Alan, we'll start with you.
Sure. The answer to the first question is, of course, yes, I support it. When it comes to location, I think that's going to take a lot of care. First of all, there are some folks who are asking to put it east of 75. That's not where the services are. And when you locate a facility like this, you need to be careful because there are nursing homes, there are schools, and there are people with businesses like the small businesses I had. They can't be hurt or interrupted.
Okay, all right, Lourdes?
I also support the concept. I think there's a lot more study that needs to be done on the project, and it has to be centrally located, especially near the sheriff's office, because I believe they should be monitoring the come-as-you-are shelter.
Okay, so let's shift back to planning issues again and talk about whether you think the county commission should have done anything different in planning and permitting the mall at Interstate 75 and University Parkway. We'll start with you, Lourdes, and be specific as you can for me, please.
They should have planned the roads better for the mall. I mean, they had to realize that people going to the mall are going to use their cars. And so the road project was not done well. It was not planned well. And I think that's why we're seeing the problems we see today.
Do you think there's anything specific the county commission could have done? Do you think they could have literally said, no, we're not going to approve it unless X, Y, Z occur?
I think they could have done a little bit more planning on the roads and could have said, okay, let's wait until we have the monies for all the infrastructure we need for the mall.
Okay, Alan?
As with most things, timing is everything. The county commission was very focused on the building and widening of University. And there was some cooperation with Manatee County, obviously. Now we have more of a regional approach to things, and that's what was needed even back then. Also, again, with timing, other developments east of the interstate are prepared and have just been approved after a very long process to extend Lorraine Road and Lakewood Ranch Boulevard from Manatee County south to Fruitville Road. That helps.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about if you're elected, what would be your one or two main areas of focus? One or two main areas of focus, and we'll start with you, Alan.
Well, planning to begin with, monitoring the budget. Again, being an accountant, I fell in love a long time ago with Excel spreadsheets. The other thing is that finish Legacy Trail. We need that finished. And every time we build a road, which is what we do now, make sure there are some multimodal paths, the extra wide sidewalks, bike lanes, so that when we're finished, everything is already done.
Okay, Lourdes?
Number one is trying to deal with the deficit we're facing in 2017 and how to deal with the budget, making sure we tighten all of the costs and not spend money frivolously. That will be the number one. The second thing would be the roads. There's a lot of roads that are disintegrating, and we need to start improving those roads. A lot of repaving projects needs to be done in Sarasota County. So I think those are two major issues.
Sure. We talk a lot about alternative forms of transportation, but are there things that you think in planning that could be done that would give people greater incentives to use mass transit or bikes or whatever? Or is it just, we just have to face the fact that this is a drive and ride community? And we'll start with you, Lourdes.
People love their cars, and that's obvious. But I believe that they talked about we need more density in order to have a sufficient bus transfer system. The problem is we don't have enough buses on the paths in order for us to get enough people wanting to use it. They don't want to go on hourly. They want to see 20 minutes. So we need to work on infill development so we can have enough people using the bus system.
All right, Alan?
Well, density is what's needed to make a viable alternative transportation system. I've worked on a lot of big projects where they're large enough where you have the golf carts, you have the multimodal pathways. But this community has to recognize, whether it's through infill or however, that you need the density. And they can't get that as upset as they seem to when you try to break past 2 units per acre.
Right.
It's needed.
Yeah, I mean, you both mentioned infill. and that is essentially, redeveloping or developing areas within the urban service area that have not been developed. But let's face it, I think you both know, there is opposition when certain forms of infill development come up, particularly on density, and you both mentioned density. Is there a way to change the mindset or a way to make infill development better so that people will be more accommodating? And we'll start with Alan.
I've worked on the biggest infill project in the United States of America in Sacramento, California. Nobody's proposing anything like this, but people don't want the parking garage next to them. People don't want the 4 or 5 story building next to them. But one of the ways to get into that is let people put 2 stories of affordable housing, 1,000 square foot apartments or condos, over the lower layer of retail. And there's been some opposition to that, but that's how you start this process.
All right. Lourdes, any ideas on how to make infill and redevelopment more accommodating?
For the developer, a lot of the things that are problematic for them is things like stormwater when they want us to building. And so there's an opportunity for them to share resources with other landowners around them, so they don't have to, if they don't meet all the requirements, they can build more units within their area. But the closer we are to the amenities, I think people understand that there's going to be more density, and that'll be more encouraging.
All right, before we get to closing statements, maybe one more question, and it's the one that all campaigns face. 2 names will be on the Republican primary ballot, and you want voters to differentiate between the 2 of you. So how would you like them to do that? What would you like voters to do to differentiate between you and Alan? Lourdes.
I think the voters will see me as a person who's worked with the citizens of Sarasota County. They know I'm civic-minded. They know I'm community-minded. So they'll see me as a person who'll be working for them.
Okay, all right. Alan?
I've been here 30 years. My family and I have been totally ingrained in the community, either through public service or the 4 businesses that we built, almost for all of them from scratch. We're here to stay. I had many opportunities to move away. This is where we love. We picked Sarasota 30 years ago. Given opportunities to move elsewhere, we said no.
All right. That sounds pretty close to a closing statement, but we'll give you one anyway. So you go first, Alan. You got 45 seconds.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm an accountant by degree, a planner, a certified planner by profession. I would ask everyone to give me their vote. I've raised my family here, 3 beautiful kids. They all graduated from high school here. I have 4 businesses that I ran, a vacation rental business, 2 restaurants, and you all know how much work that is, and a very large, I built with my partners, engineering, employee-owned, by the way, engineering, planning, environmental, and landscape architecture firm. We're here to stay. County service on the Planning Commission, the Code Enforcement Board, the Board of Zoning Appeals, Regional Planning Council, governor appointee to things. I'm part of the community.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Lourdes, over to you.
There's 3 things I think the voter will want to remember about me. One of them, I'm fiscally responsible. I believe in low taxes and restricted government budgets. I also have a business background. I have a master's in business administration, and I've had owned small businesses as well as worked for corporate America. And the last thing is I am civic-minded. Ever since I moved down here in '99, I have been working in the community. I have been president of various civic organizations, including CONA, Council of Neighborhood Association, which represents 70 neighborhoods throughout Sarasota County. So I want these voters to vote for me because they'll know I'll work for them.
Okay, very good. We are almost out of time. I want to thank you both for participating in this conversation, and thank the crew here at SNN. We will conclude this, and so we've got the District 2 candidates. So in the first segment, you'll be the second segment. Okay. So we hope everybody tunes in, and again, thank you for participating, and have a good night.
Thank
you,
you.
Tom.